I uninvited my mom from my wedding. After learning she'd been dating my abusive ex-boyfriend for years, while still married to my supportive dad. I'm Mia, 26 years old, and I'm getting married to my fiancé, Michael, 27M, in 2 months. We've been together since our sophomore year of college when we met in a literature class. Michael proposed 6 months ago during a weekend trip to the mountains. It was perfect. He got down on one knee at sunset, overlooking a beautiful lake. I said yes without hesitation. My dad, 54M, was the first person I told because he's the only parent I'm still in contact with. My relationship with my mom has always been complicated. Growing up, she seemed to view me more as competition than as her daughter. She'd criticize my achievements, try to one-up me at every turn, and make snide comments about my appearance or abilities. I remember when I was 12, I won a school spelling bee. Instead of congratulating me, Mom complained that the words weren't challenging enough and that anyone could have won. When I got my first boyfriend at 15, she started dressing more youthfully and flirting with his dad. It was mortifying. My dad, on the other hand, was always supportive. He'd try to mediate between us and boost my confidence when Mom tore it down. I think he stayed in the marriage so long partly to be a buffer between us. I remember countless nights when he'd come to my room after one of Mom's tirades, bringing me hot chocolate and reminding me that I was smart, capable, and loved. The last straw with my mom came about 4 years ago. I had just moved into my first apartment after college graduation. I was so excited to host my first Thanksgiving dinner as an adult. I spent weeks planning the menu, decorating, and even took a cooking class to make sure everything would be perfect. The day of the dinner, everything was going well until my mom showed up drunk. She started by criticizing my apartment, saying it was too small and in a questionable neighborhood. Then she moved on to insulting my cooking. When I tried to steer the conversation to more positive topics, she became belligerent. She started bringing up embarrassing stories from my childhood, twisting them to make me look bad. The final straw was when she started bad-mouthing Michael, implying he wasn't good enough for me and that I was settling. My dad tried to calm her down, but she was out of control. He ended up having to physically remove her from the apartment. I was left in tears. My first adult Thanksgiving ruined. That night, I decided I'd had enough and cut contact with my mom. A few months later, my parents got divorced. Mom initiated it, saying she didn't want to spend her life with Dad anymore. It broke my dad's heart, but honestly, I was relieved. I felt like I could finally breathe without her constant negativity in my life. Over the next few years, I focused on building my career as a graphic designer, deepening my relationship with Michael, and healing from the years of emotional turmoil caused by my mom. I started therapy, which helped me process a lot of my experiences and build healthier relationships. Fast forward to last week. Out of the blue, I got a message from my mom saying she'd heard about my engagement and wanted to reconnect before my new chapter in life. She said she missed me and wanted to make amends. I was doubtful but also curious. Had she really changed? I talked it over with Michael, and he encouraged me to give her a chance. He comes from a close-knit family and has always had trouble understanding my relationship with my mom. He thought maybe time apart had given her perspective. So, against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her for coffee. When I arrived at the cafe, I was shocked to see my mom wasn't alone. Sitting next to her was Owen, my ex-boyfriend from high school. Owen and I dated for about a year when I was 16, and it was a miserable experience. He was emotionally abusive, constantly putting me down and making me feel worthless. He'd criticize my appearance, tell me I was lucky he was dating me because no one else would want me, and even tried to isolate me from my friends. It took me years to rebuild my self-esteem after that relationship. I nearly turned around and left right then. But my mom called out to me. As I approached their table, I noticed how close they were sitting. Then my mom dropped the bomb. She and Owen were dating. They'd been together for over 3 years. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Not only had my mother been cheating on my dad, but she was with the person who had caused me so much pain in the past. I asked how long this had been going on, and Mom casually replied, "Oh, about 4 years now." 4 years. That meant their relationship started when I was still in college, while Mom was still married to Dad. I was disgusted and furious. I demanded to know how she could do this to me and Dad. Mom tried to defend herself, saying she and Owen had reconnected at a school reunion and things just happened. She claimed she never meant to hurt anyone. Owen sat there silently, looking uncomfortable. I couldn't bear to hear anymore. I told them both exactly what I thought of their relationship and stormed out of the cafe. As I drove home, I was shaking with anger and disbelief. Memories of my relationship with Owen came flooding back. The constant criticism, the manipulation, the way he'd make me feel small and worthless. And now my own mother was with him? When I got home, I broke down crying. Michael held me while I told him everything. He was shocked and angry on my behalf. He suggested I tell my dad what I'd discovered, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Dad had finally started to move on and seemed happier. He'd even started dating again, seeing a kind woman he met at a community college art class. I didn't want to reopen old wounds. For the next few days, I ignored calls and messages from my mom. She kept trying to explain and asked me to hear her out. But I couldn't imagine any explanation that would make this okay. I'm struggling with what to do now. Part of me wants to tell my dad the truth, but another part wants to protect him from this pain. I'm also wrestling with whether to invite my mom to the wedding. Before this, I was on the fence, but now I'm leaning towards not having her there at all. Michael thinks I should tell my dad, arguing that he deserves to know the truth. But I'm worried it will devastate him all over again. I also don't know how to process the fact that my mom is with someone who treated me so badly. It feels like a betrayal on so many levels. I'm angry, hurt, and confused. I thought I'd made peace with not having my mom in my life, but this has brought up all sorts of emotions I thought I'd dealt with. How do I move forward from here? Should I tell my dad? And how do I handle my mom's attempts to reconnect now that I know the truth? It's been about 3 weeks since my last post and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. It really helped me sort through my feelings and decide what to do. After much deliberation, I decided to tell my dad the truth about Mom and Owen. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had, but I felt he deserved to know. I invited him over for dinner one evening when Michael was out with friends so we could talk privately. I made Dad's favorite meal, lasagna with garlic bread, hoping it might soften the blow somehow. As we sat down to eat, I could barely touch my food. Dad noticed my nervousness and asked what was wrong. I took a deep breath and told him everything. About meeting Mom and Owen, how long they'd been together, and my suspicions about the timeline of their relationship. When I told him, Dad was initially silent. Then he asked me to repeat what I'd said, like he couldn't believe it. Once it sank in, he got angry. Not at me, but at Mom. He started pacing around the living room, muttering about how it all made sense now. Mom's sudden desire for a divorce, her secrecy about her new relationship, her insistence on keeping certain details of the separation private. Then Dad did something that surprised me. He laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh, more bitter and resigned. He said, "Well, I guess that explains why she was so adamant about keeping her new boyfriend's identity a secret during the divorce proceedings. I always wondered about that." We talked for hours that night. Dad shared some things about their marriage that I'd never known. Apparently, Mom had a history of inappropriate flirtations and maybe even affairs, but Dad had always given her the benefit of the doubt. He told me about finding suspicious text messages years ago, about Mom's girls' nights out that would last until the early hours of the morning, about the way she'd get defensive whenever he asked about her day. Dad admitted he'd stayed in the marriage partly for my sake, hoping things would improve. He also confessed that he'd been too afraid to really confront the issues in their relationship, always making excuses for Mom's behavior or blaming himself. As the night wore on, Dad's anger seemed to fade into a mix of sadness and relief. He thanked me for telling him the truth, saying he'd rather know than continue to wonder. He admitted he'd had suspicions but had been too afraid to dig deeper. Knowing the full story, he said, gave him a sense of closure he hadn't realized he needed. As for Mom, she's been relentless in her attempts to contact me. She's called, texted, emailed, and even shown up at my workplace once. Thankfully, I wasn't there that day. Her messages swing between apologies, justifications, and guilt trips. She keeps insisting that her relationship with Owen has nothing to do with how he treated me in high school, that he's changed, and that I'm being unfair by not hearing them out. In one particularly frustrating voicemail, Mom actually suggested that I should be happy for her because Owen makes her feel young and vibrant. She said I was being selfish by not accepting their relationship. It took all my willpower not to call her back and scream at her. Owen tried to reach out to me directly as well. He sent a long email apologizing for how he treated me in high school, claiming he was young and stupid then but has grown as a person. He said he hopes we can all move past this and have a relationship. I deleted the email without responding. After much thought and discussion with Michael, I've decided not to invite Mom to the wedding. It wasn't an easy decision, but I feel it's the right one. This is supposed to be a happy day for Michael and me, and I don't want it overshadowed by drama or tension. I've asked Dad to help run interference if Mom tries to show up uninvited. Michael has been incredibly supportive through all of this. He's angry on my behalf but has let me take the lead in how to handle things. He did suggest that we consider hiring security for the wedding, just in case Mom tries to crash it. We're looking into that option. One positive outcome of all this is that it's brought Dad and me even closer. We've been spending more time together, and he's been helping with some of the wedding planning. It's nice to see him getting excited about something again. Last weekend, we went cake tasting together, and for a few hours it was like all the drama with Mom didn't exist. We just laughed, ate too much cake, and enjoyed each other's company. As for me, I'm doing okay. Some days are harder than others. I've had moments of anger, sadness, and even doubt. But overall, I feel like I'm making the right choices for myself and my future. I'm focusing on the positive things in my life. My upcoming marriage to Michael, my strong relationship with Dad, and the support of friends who've rallied around me. I'm still processing everything, but I feel like I'm on the right path. Thank you all again for your support and advice. This meant more than you know. Update 2. It's been about 2 months since my last update, and I'm writing this the day after my wedding. Despite all the drama leading up to it, the day itself was beautiful and drama-free. In the weeks before the wedding, Mom's attempts to contact me intensified. She left tearful voicemails, sent long emails, and even tried to get mutual friends and family members to intervene on her behalf. One particularly frustrating incident involved her showing up at my bridal shower, which my bridesmaids had organized as a surprise. Thankfully, my maid of honor, Sarah, who knows the whole situation, intercepted her before she could make a scene. Mom left, but not before making Sarah promise to give me a letter she'd written. I read the letter later that night. It was full of the same justifications and guilt trips she'd been using all along. She wrote about how hurt she was to be excluded from my big day, how she'd always imagined helping me pick out my wedding dress and being there as I got ready. She conveniently forgot to mention all the times she'd undermined my confidence or tried to compete with me. The letter ended with her begging me to reconsider and allow her to be part of the wedding. I tore it up and threw it away. Owen also made another attempt to reach out, this time through social media. He sent me a friend request with a message saying he hoped we could clear the air before the wedding. I blocked him without responding. It was infuriating that he thought he had any right to be part of my life after how he treated me. We did end up hiring security for the wedding just to be safe. I hated that we had to take that step, but Michael insisted, and I knew he was right. We provided them with photos of Mom and Owen and instructions not to let them in under any circumstances. Thankfully, the security wasn't needed. Mom didn't try to show up and the day went off without a hitch. The ceremony was beautiful. Michael and I wrote our own vows and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. I promised to always be his partner and his friend, to support his dreams and share his burdens. He vowed to love me unconditionally, to be my rock in hard times, and to always make me laugh. Dad walked me down the aisle and the pride and love in his eyes meant everything to me. He looked happier and more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. As he handed me off to Michael, he whispered, "I'm so proud of you, sweetie. You deserve all the happiness in the world." During the reception, Dad gave a toast that had me in tears. He talked about watching me grow up, how proud he was of the woman I'd become, and how happy he was to see me with someone who truly loved and respected me. He also thanked Michael for being such a positive presence in both our lives. Then, in a moment that surprised everyone, he raised his glass and said, "To Mia and Michael and to the family we choose, may it always be filled with love, respect, and joy." I knew he was acknowledging my decision to keep Mom out of my life, and it meant the world to me. The rest of the reception was a blur of dancing, laughter, and love. Michael and I had our first dance to It Last by Etta James, and I've never felt more loved or supported than I did in that moment, surrounded by the people who truly care about us. After the wedding, Michael and I left for our honeymoon. We're currently riding this from a beautiful beach resort, feeling relaxed and happy. It's been nice to have this time away from everything, to just focus on each other and our new life together. While I'm thrilled to start this new chapter of my life, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have moments of sadness about Mom not being there. But those moments are fleeting, and I know I made the right decision. I'm working on accepting that the mother I wished I had doesn't exist. And that's okay. I have so much love in my life from Dad, Michael, and our friends. Dad called yesterday to check in and let me know that Mom had reached out to him after the wedding. Apparently, she was hurt and angry about not being invited. She accused him of turning me against her and threatened to tell her side of the story to anyone who would listen. Dad shut down her complaints quickly, telling her that she had no right to be upset given her actions. He told her in no uncertain terms that if she continued to harass me or tried to spread lies, he would not hesitate to set the record straight with everyone they know. As for the future, I'm not sure what it holds regarding my relationship with Mom. For now, I'm maintaining my distance and focusing on my new life with Michael. We're talking about buying a house next year and maybe starting a family in a few years. It's exciting to plan our future together. Maybe someday I'll be ready to hear Mom out, but that day isn't today. For now, I'm focused on nurturing the relationships that bring positivity and love into my life. I'm looking forward to building new traditions with Michael, continuing to strengthen my relationship with Dad, and creating the kind of loving, supportive family I've always wanted. Thank you all again for your support throughout this journey. Your advice and kind words have meant the world to me. Here's to new beginnings and choosing our own happiness.